Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. And friends, here we are. Today, we've actually recorded this one on March 13th, 2020. We are in the thick of the coronavirus and things are changing by day in our businesses, right? So what I wanted to talk about today is not so much the panic and all the things as with the virus, but I want to talk about and be the calm voice for you to really think about how you're putting yourself out there, gaining visibility in your business, and continuing to churn in new prospects that turn into qualified and happy clients for your business. Because let's face it, with a pandemic, we also are going to be struggling with some cash flow issues. So how do we squash that? I've got the perfect guest for that today. My guest is Lori Granito, and she is a 4-time TEDx speaker, a 2-time Entrepreneur of the Year award winner, professional speaker, and she's built $4 million businesses. She's a breakthrough business mentor whose mission is to help increase the number of women running $1 million businesses, which, by the way, I'm told is currently a paltry 2% out there, by sharing their message, scaling their businesses, and impacting the world. Her businesses have been featured in Time, Newsweek, Forbes magazine, and more. And you might have actually spotted her on CNBC's show, The Winners, as well. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Lori Granito. Hey, Lori.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
What a crazy world we live in right now. Can you just give me
Yeah.
an amen on that one?
I know. And things are just moving by the day.
Yes. And so because of that, you're a small business owner. I'm a small business owner. I've been in business for 16 years. I've seen lots of crazy dips and dives and roller coaster rides through it all. I'm sure you as well. When it comes to, let's put the coronavirus to the side for a second and just imagine we're in normal life. But when it comes to the idea of stepping up and into the spotlight and gaining more visibility in your business professionally, why do you think women struggle with this sometimes?
Well, I think one of the main reasons is that as women, we have been conditioned to be humble. We have been conditioned to put other people and other people's needs above those of our own.
Yeah.
And it is, and we have been conditioned to share the spotlight. And so because of that, I think it's really difficult for a woman to say, hey, I did that. I'm the best. And, I want you to recognize it. And it's not an easy thing to uncondition when you're so used to doing it. I do it still sometimes myself.
Yeah.
But in order for us to move forward and to really step out there, we have got to be comfortable saying, I'm the best at this, and I'm going to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and previously we were talking about the idea that women also have this kind of preconditioning of taking up a lot of space in the world. What's that about?
Yeah, sort of. They go hand in hand. I think of taking up space is really owning your brilliance and not being afraid to show that you're brilliant. And I think that a lot of women who want to be in that space have a fear of being, called nasty names or being told they're too aggressive or, having to step over, walk on eggshells. And so it diminishes our power in being able to take up that space. But I think when you recognize, I have this saying with my clients. I say, other people's opinions of you don't pay your bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, you really have to start doing the work on a daily basis to remind yourself that, yeah, it's okay for me to be in that space and to step into it.
And, it really makes me think of the recent book that was released by Glennon Doyle called Untamed, where she talks about this preconditioning of women. I mean, for decades now that we're chasing this ideal, we're chasing these rules and regulations that have been put on women in general that just are bananas. And I feel like I keep hearing it from, yourself and from others and people that are out there in the world, I feel like we're kind of waking up to this as women, and we're going, hang on, why do we do that? Like, what's that about? And starting
Yeah,
to become aware of these things and not repeating these negative patterns that keep us playing small. What do you think about that?
exactly. Well, I totally agree with it. We are, uh, I think one of the most difficult things as a woman in
Hmm.
business is to give yourself permission
Yeah.
to go big. And when I work with clients, I am known to say, okay, you're not thinking big enough. You've got to increase the amount of money you want to make, the amount of places that you want to be seen at, because you've got to be seen, you've got to be heard if you want to get paid.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to come and knock on your door and say, here's $1 million. And it's incumbent upon all of us to say, okay, what can I do today that's going to help me to move forward tomorrow?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes that's scary. Sometimes that means, I'm an extroverted introvert. Like I hate like being in crowds. I hate, I love being on the stage,
Yeah.
but just the idea of like what I have to do to get there. It's kind of like this alter ego I have. And I think a lot of people have that fear of like, I want to have it all, but I'm scared to do the things that's required for me to get there.
So, what's working for you then to squash those fears and to help you push past those limiting beliefs?
So one of the things that is when personally when I get on the stage is I always remember that it's not about me.
Mm.
So that allows me to put my fears on a back burner because I think about how many people and how many times I've been on a stage who come up to me afterwards and said, "Oh my God, I needed to hear that today."
Hmm.
After I did my first TED Talk for 3 years, I would have people like stop me in the subway and say, I saw your talk and now I can, I always think about that when I'm going through rough times, just keep swimming.
Yeah.
And that for me validates it allows me that when my tummy the butterflies are in my tummy before I get ready to walk out on stage to say, it's not about you. It's about that one person or that group of people that's in the audience that needs to hear your message.
And that certainly resonates with me. I mean, I've seen you speak. You're an excellent speaker, and I think that there is some truth to that. In storytelling is all about connection, right? It's all about a sense of, do I connect with a person that's on stage that's telling their story, sharing their lessons learned, sharing their wisdom? Do I connect on a deeper level with that? Do I see myself in that? And I think that it sounds like to me when you shift the spotlight in your head of like, oh, it's not about me, but it's about the story, it's about bringing value to the people in the audience, then it does change something in the fear, right?
Right. And I have a secret to tell you that a lot of people run away from we all have, done crap in our lives that we wish we could have done differently or we're
Yeah.
not proud of, or, we just don't want people to know. But the secret is that thing that you're afraid of, that people are going to find out, that you're ashamed of, or that you just, hope nobody finds out that you're not as good as you think you are. That is your superpower.
Yeah.
That thing that you're running away from, all of that mess, that becomes part of your message. And that is what's going to draw the people to you that you want to work with.
Right, because who really wants to see somebody speak from stage that's like, well, I've got it all done, it's all perfect, and here's my 2.5 kids and my 7-figure business that I only work
Exactly.
2 hours a week. And, you're just like, I can't even relate to this because I don't even understand. If you're saying that you had no struggles whatsoever and you just magically created this business or this lifestyle or whatever, yeah, I can imagine that's when people pull out their phones and go, I'm checking out from here and I'm checking into whatever's on my phone and not really connecting with you. So
Absolutely.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and think about other ways. And this is really the topic we're simplifying is how to put yourself out there, how to gain visibility. And the ultimate goal in my head is to have a thriving business, right? To generate sales, to bring the right people to you and your business. Are there other reasons why putting yourself out there is a good idea and gaining visibility is a good idea for your business?
Well, it is. I tend to think that it is one of the most important things
Yeah.
for your business,
Yeah.
because if nobody, you can't make money as the best kept secret.
Right.
That's like you just can't.
Yeah.
And you could have the best product in the world. You could be the best service provider of whatever it is that you do, but if nobody knows about it, how are you going to get paid?
Right.
Nobody, you don't have customers. And so it is really important that even if you're afraid, that you figure out, how can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And don't, I think the really important thing is to remember, well, I'd say two things. You don't have to be everywhere. Pick one thing. I've been on Instagram, I think, for 3 years. I have, I think, 300 followers, and I have never posted one thing. I know there's going to be people who are on Instagram who think, oh my God,
Yeah.
but I've never posted one thing on there. So my medium is, LinkedIn and Facebook.
Yeah.
And because I can't be everywhere, when you're growing your business and you're scaling it, you want to have, you're going to need a team to help you eventually. But when it's just you, yourself, and you've got to pick and choose. You got to pick your battles. So don't be afraid if don't be conned, I should say, into thinking you've got to be everywhere. You don't. Find out where your people are, and then you work on that particular medium.
I
That's
agree.
like really an important thing.
Totally agree. And I think that, to one step further that, you can go and park your brand's name as a Twitter handle or Snapchat or Facebook or wherever, but then focus on one channel in particular and start to build those connections, build that process up. Park them, and maybe you'll use them later, but,
Exactly.
maybe you reroute, you have a pinned post at the top of your Twitter fan that says, find me here, click here to connect with me. And that's it. Like that, you don't have to do all the things. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the second thing is that you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
So I will tell you a quick little story. When I first started doing Facebook Lives, in one of my, Facebook groups, I was like, oh, I got to have a Facebook group, right? So I start doing this, and I figure out how to do a Facebook Live, and I signed up for Be Live. I think they were really new then, and I didn't know what I was doing. So, and it's still there because I'm a firm believer in like letting people see how you've evolved. I think it was a 45-minute Facebook Live. I spent so much time on this training, and then there was no video. It was just like a clean white screen. So it's just like, okay, I actually did it again, and I still couldn't figure out like how do you get the video on here? I'm not a techie, and so just don't worry about being perfect. I think I had one like 2 weeks later where I was getting ready, I just clicked, and it's counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I look in the camera, and I've still got a curler on the side of my head. So it's you just have to roll with it.
Yeah, and something that I have been testing out in my own business, and actually I kind of like it. And I learned this from Kendrick Shope. She's a sales coach. Is if you want to do some Facebook Lives or even Instagram Lives, you can do them while you're putting your hair and makeup on, and it's literally like having a conversation with a girlfriend as she's getting her hair and makeup done, and that I'm just slapping it on Instagram Live and having conversations with my audience. So you could even take it to that level. Now, obviously, if you're an accountant, that maybe doesn't translate with your audience.
Right.
But for my audience, it does make sense because, most of my clients are female and are just like talking to a girlfriend a lot of times as well. So yeah, I think I also get that feeling. I mean, it's 2020 as well. We are in a day and age where over filtering our Instagram and making everything look picture perfect. I think people are kind of starting to go, do I really want this? Are you at all relatable? Because I think we as a culture are starting to just get tired of it all looking so picture perfect all the time. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And that goes back to what I said that, we're so busy trying to like hide those things those imperfections
Yeah.
that we don't recognize that that is the thing that is our superpower.
Right.
It's the being vulnerable, the being the person who is still a work in progress.
Yeah.
That is, that's where your superpower is. I mean, I remember you know, trying to rebuild my business after losing everything. And it was kind of like, okay, I need to make calls. I need to go lock myself in my room, but my daughter is 3. So yeah, I'm going to bribe her with a piece of candy so she can go sit quiet in front of the TV
Right.
because
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to watch her today.
Yeah.
So, don't beat yourself up.
And I think that that's it. I think that there's embarrassment. There's the not enoughness that pops up. Like, oh, I should be further along in this. Like, oh, I just and I think what happens is that negative self beliefs, that tape in our head kind of rolls out. And then what happens a lot of times is we don't do anything. We don't put anything out on our social media.
Yeah.
We don't put ourselves out to speak at a conference. We're just like, well, I don't have it all together, so I'm just going to pump the brakes on it. So
Yeah.
there are other places beyond just speaking at a conference, and I want to get there and I want to dive into that, but other ways that you can put yourself out there, gain visibility. First and foremost, we were talking previously, like what about when it comes to pitching yourself for financial assistance? What kind of advice do you have there?
So the first thing I would say is that and that's a really scary prospect. If you're somebody that's in a startup and and I've been on both sides of the table, both as an angel investor, as a judge for startup competition, and as someone who was seeking either angel investment or venture capital.
Yep.
The one thing that I can tell you is that and I don't mean to sound harsh here, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about you or your business. All they care about is what can you do? How is this going to help me make money? How is it going to help your clients improve their lives?
Yeah.
So when you approach a pitch from that, detach yourself from the emotion of, this is my baby.
Yeah.
And it's the best because, I invented it and I spent 3 years working on it. Nobody cares. When you go into pitch, they care about, okay, who is it? How is it going to help the world? How is it going to help me? How am I going to get my money back? You've got to be really clear. And this is a biggie for women. This is one of the things that, and a lot of pitch competitions, do not be afraid to ask for what it is that you really, really want or that you really need for your business. When I was raising money for my very first restaurant in Hong Kong, umpteen years ago, over 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I had this mental block because it was going to cost $800,000 to build this restaurant out. And I asking people for a minimum of a $50,000 investment. I know people that didn't and don't still have that in their retirement account.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how can I ask someone for that kind of money? And I was 27 years old. And I remember going to somebody who actually wound up being my biggest investor. And this guy, he came and he told me, he said, that's like for these bankers, that's fun money for them. You're not even asking them for enough for them to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh, okay. And it was literally like, and I had like a 25-page business plan that nobody read. And I got it down to like 3 pages, and it was like, look, this is the deal, get in or don't.
Yeah.
And my last venture that I raised money for was, we raised $350,000 because I kept like 67% of that company. But we raised $350,000 in 3 days. And it was literally just like, this is the deal, you're in or out.
Right. So did you create some sort of strategic plan, like as you were going into these pitch competitions or going into a bank to pitch for a loan or a grant? What are your thoughts there?
So I think the key points are, what is your path to what are your revenue streams and your path to profitability?
Right.
How long is that going to take?
Yeah.
Who is the team? I mean, the team is really important. Like who's going to be on that team with you? And really, those are the most important things. People, when people look to invest, you invest in the person first and the idea second, because sometimes that idea is going to be crap and you want a team that can pivot.
Right, right. So they're pivoting towards what the market actually needs and what the market is going to gladly pay money for, and the idea of what's going to scale quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. I, a few years ago, was part of a business accelerator program here in England, and it was part of a pitch competition, quite a few actually. And most of those at that time I was the only woman on stage. It was all male dominated. And it sometimes felt like a bit of an uphill battle of like, here I am having to talk about, we were pitching at the time some online educational tools for the wedding industry and pitching it to a predominantly white, older male judge panel that were like, well, I don't get it. Why is the wedding industry that big? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. The wedding industry in the US is billions of dollars, like bum, 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 bum. And you're just sort of having these deer in headlight moments. Do you have any advice there where you just feel like as a woman that the people out, that are either judging it or, you're the lone wolf in a sea full of men in a room? How do you get past that of like, ugh, how do I get them to understand what I'm coming from?
Talk dollars.
Yeah.
That's really the biggest, the one thing that will move people is like, okay, this may not be an industry that you're familiar with, but let me break it down for you in terms that you can understand. Here is and make sure that your numbers are based in reality. Like if you say the wedding industry is $1 billion business and we're going to get 2% of the market, that's not really,
no,
like that you're not basing in reality. Yeah. So you want to, I always say go more conservative with your numbers, but still be able to show, okay, these are what the revenue streams are going to be. And, the worst thing that you want to hear is that it's going to be based on advertising. Like you want to make sure that you have multiple revenue streams.
Right. And, route to market with customer relationships that are already built. Maybe you are a thought leader in your industry is showing all the bits and pieces of how and why this business plan is going to work. Okay.
Yeah, and two more things I just want to say really quickly about that. Always you want to look at what your customer acquisition costs, but going back to how you put yourself out there, when you are pitching, that is not a time to be humble. That is not a time for you to shrink, because I guarantee you that every guy that is pitching, they might have like a scintilla of your experience or your background or your expertise, and they are like playing it up to the wazoo. So when you are pitching, when you're asking for, any sort of somebody to invest in you, let them know why. Let them know, like, this is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I bring to the table. And, these are my receipts.
That is a really good point. And even down to the basis level of your body language as well. I have to remind myself this because sometimes my shoulders will just naturally arch forward. Like you just roll them shoulders way back, girl. And like as you take the stage, make sure you're making eye contact with people. Or if you're sitting down to speak to a banker and you're pitching for a bank loan, make eye contact, shoulders back. Those kinds of visual cues will also show that you are confident in what you come to the table with, right?
Right.
So real quick before we shift off the gear of financial assistance, of course, there's also crowdfunding. So if you decide to launch a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something like that for your business, do you have any tips or advice for people in that realm?
Yeah, I would say partner with a professional to do your video for that. Make sure that you are, again, focusing how whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're writing a book, whether you have a physical product, whatever it is that you're out there with, you want to, that is what people see on that page is what you're selling. So you don't want like cousin John, who does like stuff
Yeah.
on the side, to be shooting your video and, editing with iMovie.
Yeah.
You can even go to, even if you get someone who does shoot a great video and you're trying to make it look a lot better, then go to somewhere like Fiverr and get it edited professionally. That won't cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But make sure that you are always keeping your customer focused. Like, what is in it for them? When doing things on those sorts of platforms as well, I would say that people also look at, like, people want to be involved in seeing something grow. And there's just this, like, I helped bring that to fruition. So always think about, it's not sometimes about the product or the thing that you're selling. Sometimes it's about the experiences that you're offering afterwards, like invite people to your book launch or to your restaurant launch, or, have them involved in, in seeing the day by day as you're building things. So give them a special platform. Sometimes it's not just about the physical thing, it's about the experiences of them being involved and seeing it come to fruition.
100% agree on that. We ran a Kickstarter a few years back, and one of the secrets to our success was that when we started to reach out to our existing network, whether it was our email list or friends and family and colleagues, actually being strategic and inviting them in the process, like 6 to 8 weeks before we went live with the Kickstarter, of like saying, hey, this is the thing that we're building. Help co-create this with us. Do you think we should have this feature or this feature on it? Do you think we should, release it this date or this date? Should it be this price or this price? And when people are involved in the co-creation, there's sort of, most times they're excited because they're like, wow, you want my opinion on this? That's cool.
Yeah.
But then B, they're really, they're fully well invested into it and seeing this thing come to life, that when the cart did open, when our Kickstarter did open, I think we were 38% funded within the first 48 hours. And that's what you want. And the secrets to crowdfunding is getting that momentum early on.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to talk about TEDx Talks next. You've been on the TEDx stage for 4 times now. You've also been part of the selection process for some TEDx, like to see how other people's applications, what gets approved and what gets denied. Can you give us a little bit of insider secrets on how to land your first TEDx talk?
Sure. So first of all, let me say that I think TEDx is an amazing platform, particularly if you're somebody who's trying to build your credibility, get yourself out there. It is kind of a little bit intimidating and scary, but it is something that absolutely anyone can do.
Yeah.
The first thing that I tell people is don't think that whatever your idea is not as valid because maybe that many people don't know you. Generally, TEDx is not looking for like the famous person, the superstar. They really focus on ideas. And so, I'll give you an example. I have one of my clients who was a 2-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, and she came to me because she actually got rejected twice. And so it really is all about the idea that you're sharing. And a lot of people put themselves out of the game because they think, oh, somebody has already talked about this.
Yeah.
But they haven't talked about it the way you have or the way you can. And so if you have something that is, an idea that you want to get your message out to the world, you have to go for it. When I filled out my first TEDx application, I almost didn't send it. And actually, if I'm being honest here, I actually didn't send it. I had it sitting on my computer for 3 weeks.
Wow.
My girlfriend came over and she was like, oh, you just finished your application. And then she hit send. And I was like, oh my God, what did you do? And the reason that I had hesitated on sending it was because once I had finished it, they announced the first 2 speakers. And one of the speakers was like the number 2 person in the Hong Kong government, like equivalent to, the vice president.
Right.
She's the former vice president, former chief executive. And The second person was like this really well-known, drop dead gorgeous anchor for Bloomberg. I was like, there's no way they're going to pick me. Like, they're like looking for big name. And I mean, I was pretty well known in Hong Kong at the time, but I was like, they're like going big here. They're like, they're not going to look at my application. And so I was already psyching myself out. And you know, and that was a process. That was a process that really opened my eyes, because when I, you know, one of the things that people should know is that every TEDx event is curated differently. And so the application process to get on the stage is differently. So that particular event, we actually had to do an open mic session. And there were so many people that were there that I just knew were shoo-ins, you know, because they were like really well known, or they were like a partner of the media partner, and they didn't get selected. So don't count yourself out.
And so with that open mic situation, is it a bit like, okay, just give us a sample, a taste of what your talk might look like? Is there sort of trying to weed through to see if you can be a public speaker, a compelling storyteller on stage?
Absolutely. So, and again, the caveat being that every event is different.
Yeah.
This particular event, you know, I had sort of in my mind the idea that when they said open mic, it would be like a casting call, like you see for Fame or something like that. You walk in on stage, there's like 5 people there, you do your little thing, and then they say, okay, we'll get back to you next.
Yeah.
So I walked in, and it was actually at this like nightclub, and there were 200 people there.
In the audience.
And in the audience. And they had these sheets with everybody's names on it, where the audience also got to like grade you.
Wow. No pressure.
And so we had like, no pressure. And they had a cowbell if you went over the allotted amount of time that they rang.
Love it.
So yeah, it was a lot of pressure. And we were 30 people. So they had shortlisted the applications down to 30 people who were on the mic that night for 4 minutes.
Wow.
And they picked 6 people out of those 30 people. But most events, I will say that that's not a lot of events do open mic. Most events, the process will be filling your application. Maybe you send in a video. Then maybe there's either an in-person or a video interview. And then there may be a second interview, and then you're on the stage. And the most important piece of that, which people sort of overlook, is people fill in the applications the way they talk. And what I mean by that is that you try to explain your idea in like this really roundabout way, because you want them to get the complete essence of what you want to talk about. And what they are really looking at is being concise, because that's, you know, TEDx is a different animal, even if you are an accomplished speaker. They want to know, like, how can you do this succinctly? And so a lot of times they'll say, tell us your idea in 1 sentence or in 20 words, and people will write like 2 paragraphs. And that's like just a recipe for getting your application thrown into the rubbish bin, because people will assume when they're looking at that you won't be able to then stay within a time frame.
Right, because a TEDx talk, it can't be longer than 18 minutes, right? So
Right.
some might be
less than that.
Right, some might be 5 minutes, 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can tell a compelling story, get your idea across and your what next, then you don't necessarily need to bump all the way up to the 18-minute mark, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, gosh, it's, and I know that you have helped clients in the past by being a coach for those that are interested in getting on the TEDx stage. Do you still do that kind of coaching now?
I do. I have a program called Wow the TEDx Stage, and another program called Wow the Stage Live, which is for speakers. I call it This Is Everything I Wish I Would Have Had When I Started Out.
Yeah.
But specifically for TEDx, the program that I help people with is like how to craft your idea worth sharing, how to get through the application process, and then how to craft your talk.
Brilliant.
The most important piece of that is how to craft your application. Mm-hmm. And how to get through the application process. And I think when people can compartmentalize those things, because a lot of times when people think I want to be on a TEDx stage, they skip to what I want to talk about, what my talk is going to look like. Well, you got to get to the talk.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get past, having your application thrown into the rubbish bin. You got to get past the interview process. You've got to get past the video. And what a lot of people make the mistake of doing is like just thinking, okay, if I explain everything, then they're going to see how brilliant this idea is and they're going to take me, which is not the case.
So 2 quick things, and then we're going to move on to other topics in gaining visibility. One, if you didn't know this, TEDx speakers are not compensated, right? Like
They're not.
there's zero money being exchanged here. So if you've been thinking like TEDx is the way I'm going to get mega rich, like that particular talk is not going to make you any money. It probably is going to make you lose a little bit money just in the beginning, just getting prepped for that talk. However, I dare say the money is made after that if you are able to really use that TEDx video and as part of your strategic marketing plan and sharing that out with the world, or if it gets really picked up on the big TED and it becomes a wildly successful, popular topic, then it can spread like wildfire that way as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, a classic example is, Brene Brown.
Insane.
She did her talk at a small TEDx event at the university where she taught,
Yeah.
and it blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of moved into a lot of different things. Simon Sinek is another example. And this idea that, like, I have one client who she actually lives in the south of France. She's American from South Dakota. And when she got accepted to do her TEDx talk, she flew from France to South Dakota to do her talk. And she had to finance that herself. Yeah. But, easily within 3 months after that, she was getting asked to speak on stages. She just spoke on a stage that was like 1,200 people. And it's helped her to grow her business. So in terms of TEDx, you have to look at it as something that will build your credibility and that will allow you, whether you're pitching something, if you're a startup and you're pitching to investors, whether you are a coach or you're somebody who's creative, it'll allow people to see what you do and what you're about in a really short time span. And that will give you that credibility boost that you might not otherwise have.
And that was my second question. So if you are based, I don't know, in the south of France, could you apply for multiple TEDx opportunities simultaneously? Or would you recommend just applying for one, getting rejected or approved, then moving on to another, rejected or approved? What would you suggest there?
I would suggest applying to as many as fit your idea.
Yeah.
And by that, what I mean is, so TEDx is considered a local event. So you need to have some connection for the most part with wherever you are applying. So that may mean that the idea that you have fits specifically with that theme of that event. Maybe, you're based in New York, but you went to college in California and right. Your university is having an event. I would suggest that you apply there. So you always want to have some sort of connection to the event because that will increase your chances. If you just say, oh, there's a TEDx in Cleveland and I'm sitting here in Alabama, and they're going to be like, well, how is that relevant to our audience?
Right.
Even though when when the TEDx events go up online and they're on YouTube, and sometimes on the main TED website, you have a global audience, but the audience on that particular day, they want you to still have some sort of connection with.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, again, like we were talking about at the top of this conversation, if the people in the audience can't resonate with you, then they shut off. And I think it all applies here as well. So let's shift gears a little on if public speaking is something that you want to get involved with more and build up your own skills and get a bit more confident getting up and on stage. What would be some ideas on how to leverage some more local public speaking opportunities, maybe where you live, or if you're going to be doing some traveling abroad or in the year ahead? Where do you find those opportunities, in your opinion?
So I would say, first, definitely don't discount local networking events, local, organizations. It was how I built my businesses, scaled them to, multi-million dollars.
Yeah.
And it was really because, I say as a business owner, it is your job to be a shameless self-promoter.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't promote yourself and you don't promote your business, then nobody else is going to.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be sort of the person that's at the forefront. And so, it could be Rotary clubs, it could be women's organizations. Look at what a lot of women organizations. So I was chair of the Women Business Owners Club and the Women Entrepreneurs Network on the board of in Hong Kong. And we would usually have like 6 months worth of events that we would have the topics for. And you're always looking for speakers. So if you see a topic that would be relevant, you could, reach out to them and say, listen, I noticed you're doing something on social media. This is again where you're not humble. I have these receipts. I would love to come and share XYZ knowledge with your audience.
It's true. And
You know,
in this day and age with the coronavirus and all of those things, some people are very nervous about meeting in person, but I dare say those kinds of local level chapters or women's organizations, Rotary clubs, what have you, they might start be dabbling their toes into hybrid events, webinars, live streams, things like that, that you, my friend, can do from the comforts of your home office. As long as you've got access to Zoom or Skype or GoToMeeting, any of those kinds of tools, you can do basically what Lori and I are doing right now, and having
right.
those video call presentations as well. So, I think in this kind of unpredictable space we are in this life, post-pandemic, this may be something to consider as part of your strategic plan, your visibility plan, if you will, in the year ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think always remember that there is somebody that is 2 steps behind you
Yeah.
who can learn from either your successes or your failures. Sometimes they learn a lot more from your failures. And because you've already done it and you could tell people like, I did this. If you're somebody who's a creative person and you just had like a nightmare client as a caterer or a wedding planner,
Yeah.
here are the things that I would put in my contract the next time. That's something that people really need to know, particularly if maybe they're just starting out. So always know that no matter where you are, you have something to share.
And, I guess that really leads into a dovetail there is that, these local chapters maybe don't have a public speaking fee. Maybe they give you a little bit of a stipend to get on the train to come down, maybe. But reality is you're effectively selling from the stage because now all of a sudden now people know you and they've heard your stories. They've resonated with you on a deeper level. So do you have some ideas or tips of how to really effectively sell from the stage so that, you start to turn the audience members into paying customers?
Sure. So people need to understand that there are 2 types of compensation. There's monetary compensation and then non-monetary compensation when you're speaking on a stage.
Yeah.
I will gladly go and speak for free and pay my own way to speak somewhere if my ideal clients are in the audience.
Yeah.
The reason being that I can make way more money, if I'm able to sell from the stage, or even if in some cases you're not able to sell from the stage, but your clients are in the room. And because a lot of times when you're being paid, you may not be able to actually make an offer.
Yeah.
In that event, I would say that's the point where you want to offer a freebie if you're allowed to, because you want to be able to follow up with people. When selling from the stage, have a clear offer that resonates with your clientele. And that offer may be an offer to get on the phone with you. It may be an offer to attend an event or an online webinar or something that you have for free that is going to then give them additional information so that they can continue to build that know, like, and trust factor with you.
Yep.
And that will turn them into paying clients.
Yeah.
I've never done an event that I've spoken at where I haven't had somebody come up to me afterwards and say, how do I work with you?
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm not selling anything. And that's a really important thing to understand. And this goes back to like really being authentic when you're speaking. People resonate with, the connection that you're going to have with them. And, don't be afraid to put an offer out there. I have a client who just did an event, and she kind of left the thing that she was going to offer until the last minute, because again, this is this mental thing. Like, I don't want people to say no to my offer. Well, they can't say no if you don't offer it. And every no, I look at a no meaning next opportunity. So you're not going to convert everybody in that room. There's usually a conversion rate in if you're like actively selling is like 17%.
Yeah.
That's like on the high end. So you're not looking to convert everybody. You're looking for your people to resonate with you. And then, you may get one client that's, a $10,000 client out of that, or, a couple.
And that's the whole, we've all done it. I either been on stage and had people do this, or, been in the audience and been that person. After you've heard somebody speak that you just really love, at the end of the conversation, you go straight up to the stage and you say, hey, Lori, I just want to introduce myself, blah, 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 blah. Tell me more about blah, 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 right?
That's how we met.
Yeah, exactly. Those are your people, because we resonate together. And so, I think... Yeah, what I hear you say here is having it prearranged with whoever the event organizer is, so that you have clearly asked, can I sell from the stage, yes or no? So that's definitively in there. And potentially I would say also in your contract, if you've got a speaker agreement contract with them. Some of these smaller organizations don't necessarily have contracts, or at least I haven't seen some from kind of the local chapter level stuff, but just simply having it in writing via email. Hey, just wanted to confirm, is this okay? And then they say yes, and then there's your contract basically. But then also you said, knowing who's in the room, making sure that you have your talks are compelling and led by them, putting them in as the hero, if you will, of the story, sharing authentically, all of that. But what about with the offer? Do you have any advice on, should it be an entry-level offer? Should it be a high-ticket offer? Or does that really also depend on who's in the room?
It depends on who's in the room,
right.
And how big the room is. You may have a high-ticket offer if you have your ideal clients and you know that they are in XYZ demographics. If you're in a room with like a lot of like people who are just starting out, they are, looking to make $5,000 a month.
Right.
You're not going to offer them, a $10,000 program.
Right.
Right. The likelihood is that, that's not something that they're going to go for. Or if that is something that you want to offer, then I would say it's not something that you are going to convert on that day. You would probably need to have a secondary conversation with that person. So a lot of times what I will offer is for people to just, have a conversation to see if this is even the right path for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not, and this is the one thing I tell people, it's not in your interest to not be able to help someone. So like I've turned away more clients than I've accepted into TEDx programs. And that's just because I want to make sure that when people are in that program, that it's somebody that is committed to actually doing the work and that I can actually help them. Because if I can't help them, that's not great for my record.
Right. They got to be coachable. They got to be in the right mindset. The timing has got to be right. They've got to devote the time to do the work so that they can get the results. It makes absolute sense. So if somebody is wanting to boost their visibility or, get themselves out there in a bigger way by writing a book, what advice would you give there?
Wow. Okay. So the first thing I would say is to partner with somebody who has a track record of helping people get their books as bestsellers.
Mm-hmm.
This is, it's really easy for us to get into, and I'm in this situation now where I'm actually writing a book. And one of the things that I found that has been really helpful was to chunk it down
Mm.
and really just outline the book and then just take each section piece by piece. And then I look at it like a jigsaw puzzle. Then I see, okay, this will be chapter 1, this will be chapter 2, et cetera, et cetera. But I really would recommend working with someone because the process of writing a book is something that I think a lot of people get stymied by because we stay in our own head. Like, should I say that? Is that, should I write this? Are people going to be interested in this? And I think it's more about like getting the stuff on the page. Getting the stuff on the page and then culling it. And it's, funnily enough, the same process of doing a TEDx talk. Like when I wrote my first TEDx talk, I remember writing it and it was just flowing out of me. I was just like, oh my God, this is great. I finished it. I read it and I sat back. I kid you not. I sat back and I went, damn, that's good. And then I timed it and it was 38 minutes.
Oh. That's not good.
So I had to cut like 75% of it because I only had like 8 minutes. I wound up going back and negotiating for another 2.
Wow.
But it's that same process. It's just like I call it just do your brain dump.
Yeah.
Just get everything out there and then you can figure out like, okay, what are the most relevant pieces to put in there.
And what will drive value for the audience.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. Well, if all of this sounds intriguing, I highly, highly recommend that you connect out with Lori and her team. So her website is lorigranito.com. We'll put all the links in the show notes for you guys to check that out. You can always find those at the simplifierspodcast.com. I mean, you run various programs throughout the year. I know you've got the Boss Lady Millionaires Club and other coaching programs. What is the Boss Lady Millionaires Club, just so we know?
So the Boss Lady Millionaires Club. So as you mentioned at the top of the program, my mission is to help more women run $1 million businesses. Yeah. And by that, I mean $1 million in annual revenue, because I have another saying, it's not magic, it's just math. And I think that a lot of women entrepreneurs see that as something that is, maybe, out there and unattainable. And so what the Boss Lady Millionaires Club is about is nurturing women entrepreneurs, no matter where you're starting from. To be able to see how you can create a business that you can scale within 3 to 5 years to $1 million in annual revenue. And so in that, I have a Facebook group. It's called the Boss Lady Millionaires Club. Go in there. There's loads and loads of trainings in there. And that's where I have my visibility. I get in there. I do, my Facebook Lives. I listen to what clients need. And it's really about giving you the tools that you need and the permission to say, yeah, I can do that too.
So we'll put all of those links in the show notes for people so you guys can check that out. And, just a reminder, she is on Facebook. She's on LinkedIn as well. What is your Facebook page, just so people know if they want to connect with you?
Lori Granito Speaks.
Okay, perfect. So we'll put that in there as well. So, Lori, I got a few questions for you that I like to ask everybody that comes on the podcast. First and foremost, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
So at the moment, I'm reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Yeah. And, it's a great book for me because I'm a closet woo-woo person. I guess the best way to put it. And I love that she talks about your fear and your passions being almost two sides of the same coin, but not letting your passions not letting your fears drive the car, like put them in a back seat. Yeah. Because as entrepreneurs, we're always afraid that either something's not going to work, that we're going to put something out there and nobody's going to, buy it, or that, somebody is just not going to resonate with whatever our message is. And so it's okay to have that, but don't let it, don't let it drive, don't let it be the driving factor. Um, and I tend to, I'm a person who's very I'm very outgoing, but I am an introvert,
Yeah.
but at heart. And what I love is that, she talks about regardless of rejection, regardless of reaction, just let the world know that you are going to chase your passion, because it's really just so much more important to follow those passions than to be scared of rejection.
Yeah.
Because when I think back to my first restaurant, raising that $800,000, I had 42 people tell me no before I got my first investor. So don't worry about like getting the no's, because that's just getting you closer to wherever you are supposed to be.
Getting you closer to the
And
yes. Yeah.
yeah, and when she talks about keeping your day job to fuel your creative juices and your love affair with whatever it is that you're doing, and not trying to worry about being perfect. Just start from wherever you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's a message that we all have to remember, that we don't have to be perfect. We can start from zero. We can make those mistakes.
And, I think that the sooner you start, the better, because then all of a sudden you're like, oh, a year's gone by. How did that happen? And then you are
Yeah.
so much further along had you, stopped and been like, well, I'll start it next month, or, oh, I'll just do it next when I've got this. You'll never get started. And also, I think it's really reassuring for anyone that's listening here, for people to hear that Lori's self-proclaimed an introvert, right? But she's still able to do all the things. So just, if you have this preconceived notion in your head that only extroverts are public speakers, or only extroverts are people that are TEDx speakers, I mean, just squash that. That's a myth. It
Yeah.
can be possible to be visible, to step up and into the spotlight, even if you are an introvert or a little bit scared, because the reality is we're all scared.
Yeah.
You just got to do it anyways.
Yeah.
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 So tell us, who's one person in your network that you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast as well.
Oh, well, she will probably be mortified that, that I put her name out here. But Rebecca Lindsay Curitz, she's actually she's a client, and she's my photographer, and she travels all over the world with me when we do our Boss Lady Millionaires Club retreats. And she's just an amazing human being and a brilliant photographer. And her story is just, just one that is just so amazing. I actually met her when she worked for Deepak Chopra, and she actually worked for one of my coaches, Lisa Nichols. And she was photographing a retreat that I was attending in Mexico. And we just started talking. And I love this, because any of your people who are listening who are creatives can know that you can always pivot into something else. And you can always, what you want to charge is not outside of the realm of possibility. And when I met her, she had $20 in her pocket. And she said, I'm going to, I have to choose between, buying gas and buying food sometimes. And so I just said, okay, well, that is you're brilliant. I don't know, what people have been telling you, but we're going to change that. And within 3 months, she had completely transformed her business. And I always remember, and it chokes me up when I think about it. I always remember she sent me a message that said, I just went into Whole Foods. I filled my entire basket, and I didn't even have to look at prices. And since then, she's photographed my retreats in Italy and in Bali. And this year we're going to Thailand. Next year we're going to Cape Town. And those retreats are where we actually map out your business, your map to million. And she's an incredible artist. And she has now taken the things that she's just, and I always say it's the thing that you would do for free, that you're so good at, and people ask you to organize or they ask you to do whatever, you do it for free because it's just that easy and you're that good. She's one of those kind of people. And she started, teaching her photography now. But one of the things that I think that really I love about her also is that she's just this nature freak. So I love when she posts pictures about her and her dog, and she just puts a tent on top of her car and just like drives out into the wilderness in California,
I
and
love
then we
it.
get these stunning pictures
Yeah.
coming back.
Well,
So she's a great person to talk to.
she sounds incredible. So we will definitely link up with her. We'll put her link in the show notes for people if you want to check her work out as well. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for today?
I as we sit here, and I know this is going to be aired a month from where we are now, but
Yeah.
as we sit here, with all of the craziness going around coronavirus, honestly, I'm grateful for my health, the health of my family. I'm grateful that I have a business that I can do online, because I actually lived in Hong Kong for 28 years. I still have a place in Hong Kong, a place in Vietnam, and I know firsthand. After having closed three of my businesses because of the protests in Hong Kong and now coronavirus, that things can turn on a dime.
Yeah.
And what I want to tell people is that no matter what happens in this situation, there's always something to look forward to. I closed my one of my businesses in January,
Wow.
and I was feeling some kind of way about it, but I just thought, okay, I'm just going to release it. And within 3 days, I had booked a $50,000 client. So know that whatever it is that you are waiting to do
Mm.
because of whatever reason, like you should just go and do it
Yeah. Yeah.
and be grateful for that day.
Yeah. And we just don't know. And I think keeping our focus on the positive, keeping ourselves aligned towards what it is we actually want, what kind of business we want to create, then instead of focusing on the panic or focusing on the fear or focusing on the unknown, we're putting our energies in the right place rather than focusing on the fear, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, you can find Lori online at lorigranito.com. And thank you again so much for your time today. My last question for you is this. Someone somewhere is listening to this episode. She was feverishly writing all the notes, when, especially we were talking about getting on the TEDx stage. And she's like, well, yeah, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm ready to step up and into the spotlight, put myself out there and gain a little bit more visibility. But let's just face it, Lori, she is scared. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
So, okay, my clients call me the BS free coach. So that's going to be my advice. Get over yourself, girl, and just do it.
Yeah.
Like, just fill that application in. Don't second guess it. Close your eyes and hit send. Just do it, because, you have this moment and it's yours. Like, everything you want is just, it is on the other side of all of that fear.
Yeah.
Every single thing you want. And I could never have imagined that I would be where I am now before doing that first TEDx talk. But I will tell you that and this is a very personal thing, if I had TEDx talk, it would not have led into me going and taking my coaching from being like, mentoring women through organizations to actually helping women through my having it as a business.
Yeah.
And I would be in a situation now where I would have had all of my businesses closed because of it, totally things outside of my control, and not have another revenue stream. You don't know where that thing that you're afraid of is going to take you. And so, if I can say anything to your listeners, is that, you know, getting on a TEDx stage, doing that business, doing that first Facebook Live, whatever that thing is that you need to do to get visible, that is going to help you 3 years from now in ways that you cannot even imagine. My life is completely different. And I know that by taking the next step and just really getting over yourself,
Mm-hmm.
just like putting yourself out there, is going to make a world of difference.
So do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Thank you, Lori. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been fantastic.